welcome back to the Firebreak. And I say welcome back because I assume that you're dedicated, longtime listeners. All right, all month, since I started this. But as you know, we're sponsored by Team Wildfire, developing new technologies for mitigating wildfires. Not just mitigating, putting them out, right? Not watching them, talking about them, describing them, but actually knocking them down using jet engines and some other cool technology. So check that out on the web at teamwildfire.com. And more importantly, be ready when the next wildfire pops up. And who's going to tell us about how to be ready? Lori Nezhura. Lori is the Deputy Director of Planning and Preparedness and Prevention. You big into the P's there, right? With the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services. Welcome, Lori. How are you today?
I'm fine, Steve. Thank you for having me on your show.
You bet. Let's jump right in. Natural disasters on the rise, man-made disasters on the rise. And I know the state's doing a lot about it, laying the plans that you lay with the governor's office. But I'd love to start with, at the individual level, what should people be doing to be prepared themselves, assuming that the government can't be there all the time to help everybody?
That's right. And thank you for bringing that up, Steve. That's really important. We have kind of 5 steps that we would encourage folks to embark on with no delay. Number 1 is make a plan for your family. And in that plan, know who you're going to have, your phone numbers, have your evacuation plan, have your reunification plan for your family. Also, sign up for alerts. Your cities, counties, they have emergency alert systems, and that's where you're going to get valuable information right before, during, and after a disaster. We also recommend that you build a go bag. So if you have to get out of the house really fast, and we've seen that with some wildfires that we've had in the last couple of years, have that go bag already created, and you can just pick it up and go with your family. And then build a state kit. That's a bigger version. It could be a box in your garage. And you can't... A state kit, yeah. You can't always get out of your house, and sometimes you'll be requested to shelter in place or directed to shelter in place. And so you're going to need those supplies in your house, the food, the water, blanket, things like that. And then finally, share this information with your neighbors. Not everyone is able to do all of those things. And so we're asking those of you who can to please help out your neighbors, especially those with access and functional needs, so that they can be prepared in the case of an emergency as well.
Yeah, well, I looked up reunification plan, but it was written by Vladimir Putin, so I'm not going to go with that.
Yeah, we're talking a different kind. This is, if a disaster happens, and they don't often happen at our convenience, do they? When your family's separated, maybe you've got some members in school, some at work, some shopping, and a disaster strikes, you need to know where to meet up.
Right. So let's say your home's no longer there or no longer occupiable. Where are we going to go? Are we meeting at the Circle K or the 7-Eleven or?
Right. And have that phone number that you can all know who to contact in the case of an emergency. And so that single point of contact for everyone can help alleviate some of the concern before you're actually able to, get together again.
So you kind of delegate a dispatch command center, perhaps with a relative out of state, that could field these areas, someone who's not going to be impacted by the same disaster.
Exactly.
Okay. So what goes in your go bag? And should you keep your go bag with you because you might be out when the go order comes and you can't go home?
Most people keep it in the trunk of their car if they have one. And we have a list of supplies that you can put into your go bag at caloes.ca.gov. But some of the kind of the big ticket items, copies of important papers, copies of prescriptions that you have that would need to be filled. People don't often think about this, but cash, money, because in a lot of disasters, the point of sale capability may be down. And
Okay.
so the only way to purchase things would be through cash. You know, not large amounts, but and
Enough, right?
yeah, enough.
I mean, try being
And
broken down on the side of the road and wave your ATM card. Not a lot of people going to stop and help, right?
right. A change of clothes. A lot of times people don't think of their pets, but
Uh-huh.
if you're going to get out of the house quickly, you're probably going to want to take your pet. Most people do. So have supplies for your pet, whether they be copies of vet records and or special food or water dish, something like that.
Okay. So your drugs, your prescription medications is what I'm
Hmm.
referring to, and then your what your pet needs, your important documents, some cash, uh, notification phone numbers for a loved one who can coordinate a reunification plan,
Yep.
water, and some food to get you through the first 3 or 4 days.
Right. Power bars, things like that. There's you can go to these commercial vendors and you can actually purchase already put together go bags, but you can easily do this at home for very little. And if you have children, we say sometimes it's a scavenger hunt kind of fun activity. You give them a
Okay.
list and they have to go through the house and try to find them. Things like fresh batteries for a radio, because a lot of times, the cellular network may be down, but FM will probably still be up and they can get their emergency information that way.
I don't think the kids would even know what to do with a radio.
Right.
Yeah. And if there's only room for the pets or the kids, I'm not telling you which way I'm going to vote. So we'll see how they're acting that week, right? You're judiciously not commenting. I saw that. All right. So tell me about what's going on at the state level. What is your office working on planning wise?
So a lot of folks don't know we exist. I mean, they want to believe that we're there, and I'm happy to say we are just ready for it's not a matter of if, but when a disaster occurs. We're creating state level plans for response and recovery. We manage quite a few programs to help mitigate disasters. They could be grant programs. Some of them are, um, in my case, I oversee some planning programs like the dam safety program, where we're working with all dam owners of extremely high or significant classification dams here in California, and there's over 800 of them,
Wow, I had no
to
idea.
create emergency action plans. And so we've standardized that across the state, should anything happen at any one of these dams. Because there's a lot of folks as residences that are in the pathways of, the inundation from dams. We have a radiological program, and so we're monitoring the one and only remaining active nuclear power plant here in the state of California. But there's a lot of other radioactive programs that we oversee, and that includes, the removal of radioactive waste from some of our academic and healthcare facilities and things like that. Um, we also have our earthquake early warning program and seismic hazards, where we're, that earthquake, that's the one that keeps us up at night because it's been a while. And when things delay, people tend to not prepare for them. But California is earthquake country. We know we will have earthquakes in the future. We know that there's a big one coming. We need to prepare for it. So we've done a lot of state level and regional level planning for big catastrophic earthquakes. And those include multiple stakeholders across the spectrum of state, local, and even like tribal and nonprofit world. We bring lots of stakeholders in because it's going to take everyone. Should
Yeah.
should that, maybe like an 8.5 or higher happen in a urban setting.
So what's being done to reduce earthquakes?
We there's a lot of things that can be done that we're working on. Seismic retrofits we have at the
Okay.
state level
That's
between the
earthquake
Cal.
damage, right? But the
Yeah.
earthquakes themselves.
Oh. Well, yeah, there's not much we can do to stop them. Um, we just need to prepare. We need to know the signs. We need to be prepared for them. We need folks to act quickly when they do because we're only going to get seconds of warning before the shaking occurs. That's what earthquake early warning is. We have over 1,000 sensors across the state of California in the ground that'll pick up shaking. And there's actually two waves that come out of a rupture, an earthquake rupture. The first
Okay.
is the primary wave, and it's a sound wave, and it moves faster than the shaking wave, which follows.
Hmm.
So we've actually got our system configured so that it can pick up that first primary wave, and it makes estimates on magnitude, location, and shaking intensity, and then within a certain logarithm and parameters, it'll send out an alert to folks to drop, covered, hold on. That's our mantra. If an earthquake's come in, drop to the ground, lower your center of gravity, cover your head and your neck, and just hold on until the shaking subsides. And so this earthquake early warning can give you, depending on how far you are from the epicenter, seconds to tens of seconds to do that. And I know it doesn't sound like much, right? Seconds to prepare for an earthquake. But if it means dropping to the ground and grabbing your children and getting under the dining room table,
Yep.
then that's the best we can hope for. And if it's 15 seconds, then you can, and you're in the car, you can pull your car to the side of the road, and you can put it in park, and gather your folks to you. So there's a lot that you can do with seconds of warning, and that's what we're working with right now in earthquake early warning. Pretty
That's
exciting.
fascinating. And I imagine the folks developing the algorithms for interpreting the sensor data are some pretty smart people.
Oh yeah, we're working with UC Berkeley, with Caltech, USGS, the California Geological Survey, and then some other universities up in Oregon and Washington.
I see. And how many earthquakes have you ridden out?
I've felt a couple, a handful. I'm here in the Central Valley, and that's kind of the area that doesn't have a lot of fault zones. It's all around the Central Valley, especially over there on the coast. So I know there's a lot of your listeners who have probably gone through some pretty tough ones, whether it be Northridge or uh, Loma Prieta, or we just had less than 2 years ago up in Humboldt, we had the big Ferndale earthquake. We've had Ridgecrest 2019. So yeah, I've worked those on the
Okay.
emergency response side, but I haven't experienced them myself.
Well, let's keep it that way for as long as we can, right? So, the thing about earthquakes, you talked about the different types of emergencies that you mitigate, respond to, prepare for, and uh, earthquakes can precipitate the others, right? A significant earthquake can weaken the levees, break the dams, drop the power lines, and start the wildfires.
That's right.
So you get a pretty bad scenario from an earthquake not checked.
Hmm.
So what is your worst is that what your worst case scenario looks like? And if not, what is it?
I think you stated it really well, because all those, we call them cascading impacts,
Okay.
um, will suck up the response resources pretty quickly. We do have a very, very robust mutual aid system here in the state of California, which, especially on the fire side, but law and emergency management too. And so if we need to move resources from the southern part of the state to the northern, or vice versa, we can do that. But when you're talking about a catastrophic earthquake, that's all hands on deck and then some. So we'll be going nationally and sometimes even internationally to find resources.
And I know we're pretty good at sending resources, at exporting them when they're needed. Are you involved at all with that? When
Well,
other
yes,
countries have a catastrophe and we chip in?
yes. As a matter of fact, that's called the EMAC, the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, that all states and multiple territories have entered into, and Cal OES would be the agent for the state of California that it would flow through. So, Texas has had floods. We've sent swift water rescue teams. Florida had hurricanes. We sent emergency management staff and recovery staff. We've sent teams to Puerto Rico. Some of our what you call urban search and rescue teams.
Yep.
One of them went to Turkey for the earthquake to help, look through the rubble to try to find survivors. So yeah, there's a lot that we've done.
And just up in Canada, I'm sure you sent fire teams up there last summer.
Yes, we've sent teams up to Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Canada, and we get teams from there as well. We've had the fire seasons that we've seen them have in the last couple of years, we've experienced, and so the exchange of fire resources has been two-way.
I'm just curious, a place, let's say Canada or Chile, has a fire as they have recently, and they need resources. Uh, do the fire department responders and the EMS guys all and gals, do they all have to have passports, or is there some type of emergency provision for getting them in?
That's a good question. I'm not involved on that side of it. I know that at times we've had fire teams from Australia come, um, and we have an MOU in place with Australia. So I'm sure that MOU discusses what those needs are, as far as diplomatic documents or whatever.
Yeah, I could just imagine the emergency offices all saying yes, let's do this in both, and then they get to
Yeah,
the TSA. Sorry, your papers are no good. That hose you're bringing with you, is that worth more than $100?
yeah. Or let's pull it out and check
Yeah,
it here on
declare it,
the
right?
customs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really does highlight the importance, though, of agencies working together.
That's right. And
Yeah.
and having a plan in place ahead of time. So these MOUs and these delegations, we have delegations from other countries all the time, especially with regard to emergency management agencies wanting to come and learn how we do things, share how they do things, see how we can work together to exchange information. And it's been really fruitful.
Yeah. And, certainly agencies like CAL FIRE are held out, to the world as really, the gold standard of how to do it. Uh, so I imagine a fair amount of resources are dedicated to offering the training to people in other states and other countries.
Yes, you bring up a good point. So one of the enterprises under me at Cal OES is the California Specialized Training Institute. And a lot of people don't know it exists, apart from the emergency management and public safety world. But we do fire training, we do post-certified police officer training, other criminal justice, terrorism, hazardous materials response, emergency management, planning, preparedness, response, recovery. And we do it mostly here in the state. We have a physical location in San Luis Obispo, but we can take our training on the road, and we have partner sites all across the state where we go. But there have been times when folks from other states have come to take training from us, and other countries as well. And that's a small part of the training. Obviously, Cal Fire does training, and I'm sure brings in folks from other states and other countries as well. Office of State Fire Marshal is another state agency that offers training. So yeah, there's a lot that the state of California can offer folks who want training in emergency response.
That's a super valuable export, from California. I'm curious. You're not the California OES. You're the California Governor's OES. What relationship does the governor have to the work that you do, and how does that differentiate from states where it's not the governor's Office of Emergency Services, it's just the Office of Emergency Service?
So, as the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, that means that we're a cabinet level agency. So we're in the administration and we're cabinet level. And I have to say, Governor Newsom, especially, this administration has been extremely supportive of emergency services and has been really at the forefront when we've had these major issues with wildfires, pandemic, and other flooding. The governor's office and the governor himself has been very, very much involved and gives us the support that we need to do the job for the Californians to keep people safe.
Yeah, and I think Governor Newsom is really out in the forefront, in that area, putting his personal support behind the programs that make people safe, and kudos to him on that, because he does stand out uniquely there.
Yes,
There are
and
other
you're
governors
right. When you compare us with other states, some states, well, I should say all states do it differently. Where they place their emergency services, sometimes it's in with the military department, sometimes it's in the administration, sometimes it's a separate commission. It really varies, but the way we're situated gives us the optimum amount of support and that we need to do our jobs.
What else do you need to do your job well? How much does community support play a role?
It's huge. We've learned that emergency management is a whole community job. And by whole community, we're talking everything from all levels of government to nonprofit organizations to private sector who own most of the critical infrastructure here in our state, down to the private citizens. And one of the ways we've tried to reach down into individual communities is through our community-based organizations. We have a couple programs because not all communities are accepting of government.
Right.
So we have grant programs where we can support CBOs to do the job, to carry the message, to provide the resources, and to create that level of preparedness in those communities. And it's been extremely successful. It started out as the Listos California Preparedness Campaign. Now it's the Listos California Grant Program. And it's been tremendous. We've had hundreds of community-based organizations come through, and we provide them with materials, with messaging, and guidance, technical assistance, and they take the message into the community. And that was, I think, best visualized during the pandemic. Especially when the vaccines came into the state of California, and there were a lot of people that were very wary about them, we utilized this network to help us get people to vaccine centers or vaccines to the communities, and messaging about what to do if and where to go for other resources during the pandemic. It was truly an amazing whole community effort.
And I think that's really interesting. I'd love to know what the history of how the recognition for that need came about, in that the same assistance behind a different face makes a difference. Right. That what you're doing is the same, but some people won't take it some people are wrapped around the axle of, we're from the government, we're here to help, as a sign to run, and right, and other people, right, some people, can take the help directly from the source, but that you recognize that you had to repackage that and then to equip local organizations to be able to carry the same message, I think really showed a great insight into how to support all of the communities.
Yeah, I'll give all that credit to Governor Newsom, who really, I think, envisioned the original Listos California preparedness campaign. It was set to launch just months before the pandemic hit, and then when the pandemic hit, we did an immediate about face. It was going to be a general preparedness campaign to tell people, have a plan, create a go bag and a stay kit, and sign up for alerts. But it really pivoted to how can we support you during the pandemic? You're isolating at home, you need resources, you need medications, you need company or someone to talk to. One of the exciting programs that came out of that was calling, I forget what it's called, shame on me, but we would call seniors who were isolated in their homes and just talk to them. And during the conversation, we try to weave in, hey, have you signed up for alerts through your county? And hey, we have this list of places in your county where they're handing out food supplies, or this or that, or providing rides to doctors appointments, etc. And some of those calls would be 5 minutes long, some of them would be 30 minutes
Hours.
And that was hours. That wasn't the main concern was these people were so isolated. We wanted them to feel another human being, community. So it was extremely successful.
Right. There's no way to disconnect mental health and physical health, and if people are feeling isolated, unconnected, not feeling like there's resources or people at the other end of the line, that'll definitely tumble their physical health quickly as well. It's a really great program there. Well, I would be remiss, knowing that you have family back in the Ukraine, to not send my prayers and hopes for them to have a speedy and successful recovery from the aggressions that they're being subjected to. So please.
Thank you. And likewise, I know you have a history there as well. So I appreciate that.
Yep. Well, I wish the Governor Newsom could go do something over there. But, start somewhere, do something, right? Well, Lori, I really appreciate the work that you're doing there, and I know it's not a job you do alone, and really hundreds of people working in your organization to try to improve safety and response preparedness for emergencies. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Steve, and thanks for the valuable service that you provide to folks by highlighting some of these areas in government and non-governmental organizations that folks might not know exist.
I appreciate that, and I hope they find out. And whether it's here or somewhere else, the information's out there. Before I let you go, let me have that website again, where people could go to find information on what goes in your go bag and your stay kit and your.
I'm going to give you two.
Thing. Go ahead.
I'll give you two. Go to for general emergency management information. Go to caloes.ca.gov.
Okay.
Now, if you're an individual family member who wants to learn how to build a go bag or a stay kit, or just how to prepare or sign up for alerts, you can go to listoscalifornia.org. Listos, California.
Listos, Listos.
That's correct. Listos is Spanish for ready.
Ready. Right. Now, you won't believe that at one point in my life I played on trapezes, and that was the right before you go listos, and and then if you nod, then you're ready, and off you go.
Okay.
There we
Wow,
go.
I learned something new.
Yeah. I forgot something old. Comes and goes like that. Lori, thanks so much for joining me today. And thank you all for listening to what's the show called? The Firebreak. There we go. I'm Steve Wolf. We're sponsored by Team Wildfire. Thanks so much, and we'll see you at the next one. Take care.